What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show. I appreciate you making me a part of your day again. Last week, I made my final predictions for the NFL draft, and now that the NFL draft is in the books, we're going to go over a little bit of those picks and teams who are trying to change their futures for the best in the NFL and trying to strive to win Lombardi trophies. There's a lot of winners and losers for this year's draft. I got to say, I'm quite surprised with a bunch of teams and pleasantly surprised for some others. So it's going to be a fun time today. And, I can't wait to dive into these picks and everything like that because this has been probably the most hyped up NFL draft probably ever, especially with the amount of quarterback play that has been coming out, the amount of quarterback talent in general, and just the overall star power that was in college football the year prior that just is making that final transition to the NFL. So it was quite something to watch, that's for sure. And as everybody knows, Bucked Up ambassadors, so head on over to buckedup.com, use promo code SHOW32, get yourself 20% off any and all pre-workout or lifting gear orders you may have. So before we dive in to the NFL draft, there's one team in particular, well, really two teams, but one team in particular I'm going to be talking about right now, and it's not in the NFL. Yeah, I'm talking a little bit of NBA, a little bit of basketball today because anybody who knows me knows I've been pretty much a lifelong Lakers fan. Now, I dabbled here and there with a couple other teams, but that was when my favorite player in the league was playing, Shane Larkin, the GOAT of Miami Hurricanes basketball from 2012 to 2013. I know probably nobody watched Miami Hurricanes basketball like I did back in the day, but that was a time to be alive when you were a Hurricane basketball fan, so that was a fun time. But I've always had a soft spot for the Lakers. I always rooted for the Lakers no matter what. Up years, down years, didn't matter. I always rooted for the Lakers. The late, great Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, was my generation's version of Michael Jordan in a lot of ways. Just that Mamba mentality in general, the way he played, the way he carried himself. Kobe was one of the best to ever do it, obviously, and that's the reason I started watching NBA, is watching Kobe Bryant when I was a little bit younger. Obviously, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old at the time, but fast forward all these years to right now. Down 3-1 to the Denver Nuggets in the first round of the Western Conference in the playoffs. The Lakers are absolutely pathetic when it comes to their team, as of recently. Obviously, back in 2020, the bubble year, people wanted to discredit that team in general for winning the title, and they wanted to put, so much disrespect on the Lakers' name in general, and that's not anybody's fault. Nobody could have predicted that we would go through a worldwide pandemic in 2020. Nobody could have predicted that entire situation to unfold the way it did. So kudos to the NBA for that time period, at least, finally being able to finish out the season. As we all remember, when COVID really started spiking, that was during the NBA season that year in 2020. So we witnessed games be shut down and stopped completely in their tracks while we were watching them on national television. So that was a crazy time to be alive, that's for sure. So, and that year, late months down the line with the bubble and everything, yes, the Lakers ended up winning the 2020 NBA title. And a lot of people don't like that idea, but hey, it was unprecedented times, so got to take unprecedented measures. So, Lakers 2020 NBA champions. So now fast forward all this time, all these years later. Yeah, the Lakers stink. Even though they're in the playoffs, yeah, they still stink. If LeBron James and Anthony Davis are not on, the Lakers just don't win. And the last 12 tries against the Denver Nuggets, the Lakers have won one time. One single time. That's pathetic. That is so pathetic from one of probably the most prestigious organization in all of NBA history, the Los Angeles Lakers. So They were down 3-0. Obviously, they were in dire threat of getting swept for the second year in a row. That would have been unprecedented to hear. Another LeBron James team gets swept. Really, well, it would have been only the second time in his career that he would have gotten swept in the playoffs. But Denver is just a horrible matchup for the Lakers in a lot of ways, mainly because the Lakers don't have a bench to speak of. If their stars are not playing, if their stars are not on, the Lakers just don't win. Even when Anthony Davis and LeBron are on, they still can't win games. It's still a struggle for them to win games. Yes, they won game 4, but I'm going to throw up a prompt for you guys. So, this entire series so far, this is the first 3 games. In game 1, the Lakers had a lead as large as 12 points. They ended up losing. In game 2, their largest lead was 20 points. Yeah, they blew that too and lost. In game 3, their largest lead was again 12 points. Yet again, they lost. The Lakers can't finish games. By the end of the game, LeBron is gassed, AD is gassed, D'Lo, Hachimura, and Reaves don't show up consistently. The Lakers don't have a bench to speak of. I knew for a fact that I would hope that the Lakers win, obviously, because I'm biased for the Lakers, but I knew for a fact they didn't really match up well with Denver. Size-wise, yes. Skill-wise, not even close. Denver has a bench. The Lakers don't. At least none to speak of. So, excuse me. So where do the Lakers go from here? Well, obviously they won Game 4. Surprisingly, they won Game 4 in LA. And now Monday night, which was tomorrow night, well, yesterday night, they had to go to Denver. And my prediction, obviously, is that the Lakers are going to get bounced tonight. Just because, well, my prediction is the Lakers are going to get bounced real soon. Just because I don't think they can go to Denver and win. I just don't think that the Lakers are built to go to that. I just don't think they're built to go to Denver and beat the Nuggets. I really don't. I knew they would probably steal one. I didn't think LeBron would get swept a second time in his career. But the problem is the Lakers are just not built to handle Denver. They match up well size-wise, but they cannot match up well skill-wise, at least. Sorry. But I want to go over a couple things. Like I said, LeBron and AD have been carrying the Lakers for the better part of 3 years now. Really, ever since the end of the bubble, the end of COVID, really. It's been all LeBron and AD centric. That old core retired or just moved on better pastures and just retirement life, that's fine. But you got to reload after that. It was a bunch of old guys on that Lakers team that won the championship 4 years ago, but now it's just a bunch of inconsistent players. So let's go over this. Game 1, obviously, largest lead was 12 points, and the result was a loss. So LeBron and Anthony Davis both combined for 59 points for that entire game. Among, AD always having double-digit rebounds and blocks and everything. Not double-digit blocks, but AD is doing his thing. LeBron is doing his thing. So Hachimura had 7 points in Game 1. Reaves had 13 points in Game 1. And DeAngelo Russel had 13 points in Game 1. But DeAngelo Russel was 6 for 20 and 1 for 9 on 3 points, on three-pointers. Hachimura, Reaves, and Russell are the most inconsistent players on the entire Lakers. So let's go to Game 2 now. LeBron and AD handled business. They combined for 58 points. LeBron with 26, AD with 32. So Rui Hachimura had 3 points off 1 for 7 shooting. Austin Reaves had 9 points on 4 of 11 from shooting and 1 for 5 on threes. And then DeAngelo Russell, he actually showed up this game. 23 points, 7 of 11 on 3-point shooting. So, and yet again, the Lakers lost this game. But Rui and Reaves did not step up. DeAngelo Russell did. But again, that's not enough for the Lakers. So let's now move to Game 3. LeBron and AD, yet again, they handle business like they always do. This has been probably AD's best year ever as a pro in the NBA. But LeBron and AD, they combined for 59 points again. Rui, 5 points in Game 3. Austin Reaves, 22 points in Game 3. So you had one show up so far. And now DeAngelo Russel in Game 3, 0 points. 0. Not a single point from DeAngelo Russel in Game 3. 0 for 7 from the field, 0 for 6 from three-point range. The definition of inconsistency when it comes to the Los Angeles Lakers is DeAngelo Russel. And it's no secret that a bunch of people are frustrated with D'Lo, and for good reason. He is the most hot and cold player I've seen in the NBA in, a decent amount of time. Like I said before, I don't really watch much NBA, but once the NBA playoffs start, I'm on it like stink on shit. So I'm really observant when it comes to those it comes to the playoffs games. Bye, Phoenix Suns. Got swept. And now let's move on to Game 4 of the Lakers and the Nuggets. So obviously, they lost the first 3. They finally won Game 4. But here's the Game 4 stats. LeBron, 30 points. AD, 25 points. DeAngelo Russel, 21 points. Austin Reaves, 21 points. And you got Hachimura, 9 points. Not bad, but you see what happens? In order for the Lakers to win and win consistently, AD and LeBron can't be the only ones having a hot night. Because AD and LeBron have been taking care of business for years. They've been taking care of business since the bubble year when they won the NBA title. But the fact of the matter is, it could be either Russell, Reaves, or Rui who don't show up. It doesn't matter. Even if one of them show up, it doesn't guarantee the Lakers are going to win at all. Because they are so LeBron and AD reliant because of those inconsistencies from their other star players that they call stars. This is just problematic for the entire Lakers organization, because let's see, they tried a lot of trial and error moves lately. And the biggest one that comes to mind was the Russell Westbrook move. That move failed miserably, and they moved off of it. They owned it, they bit the bullet, and they moved on. And now with the DeAngelo Russel move, bringing in D'Lo again from his first stint in LA, it's kind of hysterical that people had such high promise, he had such high promises and potential from last year going into this year. But towards the end of really the entire season, D'Lo has been the definition of inconsistency. And that's why the Lakers are where they are now. And who knows what's in store for the future of the Lakers franchise. LeBron might be gone. It's going to be turned over to AD. And AD was the head of the Pelicans for years, but the problem was they never surrounded him with great talent, but they put immense pressure on him to be the guy in the NBA, to be the guy for the New Orleans Pelicans. But that's just not the way the cards felt. But I don't know if you're the Lakers, I don't know where you go from here. I really don't. I do think the Lakers are going to lose Game 5 in Denver. I can't see the Lakers going up to Denver and actually beating the Nuggets. Not Jokic, not Murray, not Gordon, not Porter Jr. The Denver Nuggets are going to be probably surefire favorites to win the title again. At least in my opinion, they're pretty close to being the surefire favorites of winning the game, of winning the entire NBA championship. So those are the issues with the Lakers, really. Obviously, Anthony Davis and LeBron James, they're fantastic. They're great. Honestly, I think they're two of the top maybe 7 or 8, definitely top 10 players in the entire world. But Hachimura, Reaves, and Russell, their inconsistencies, game in, game out, is the reason that they're holding the Lakers back. They're the reasons that the Lakers can't get over the top. Now, people are going to say, well, LeBron's supposed to make people better. LeBron makes people better. In a large part, he does. Now, I personally think LeBron's a little bit of a stat monster now towards the back end of his career. I think it's slightly less about winning championships and more about personal accomplishment, but I could be 100% wrong. That's neither here nor there, but LeBron James does make players around him better. Specifically because when he drives the lane, she still draws in all the defenders in order to kick the ball out to someone around the three-point range. He can get you the ball. You just got to make the damn shots. Now, that's where the Jordan and LeBron comparison comes into play, where Jordan probably wouldn't have passed the ball. Jordan would have just shot it and took it, and, he just would have been the guy. And LeBron is more about, team-oriented play. But that's neither here nor there. You can't entirely place the blame on the Lakers bench or their other star players, and you can't entirely put the blame on LeBron James. So you can't. The blame goes both ways of, who needs to elevate who, but the Lakers sure as hell and their players, their other star players, they need to hit their damn shots. When they have open looks, they need to have them. They need to make them. That's just the reality of basketball, though. But when you got DeAngelo Russel basically being double-teamed and sometimes triple-teamed, I'm pretty sure I saw him take a contested three with three people around him. When you got DeAngelo Russel not even getting in the team huddle, scrolling on his damn phone, when you got a guy who's just going to throw up threes just and saying a prayer that he actually makes them, you're not going to win like that. And you can't really have guys like that on your team, which is why I think the Lakers should move off of D'Lo, and I think they will. I don't see any reason that D'Lo will be a Laker next year. Barring an NBA championship win, I don't see anything changing that leads me to believe that DeAngelo Russel would still be on the Lakers next year. So, Game 5 Monday night. Obviously, that time has passed, so I could be right, I could be wrong. Lakers could be bounced. The Lakers could still be in it, but we'll find out soon enough. But as far as the Los Angeles Lakers are concerned, they got to do a roster overhaul or something and get a bench for next year. Okay, so that was my little NBA rant. I haven't watched much NBA over the past couple years just because I kind of grew out of it with everything going on in the NBA, especially like the load management crap that plagued the league for the past couple years. And obviously injuries to star players, they happen, but it doesn't make the games any more enjoyable. It's like the same way in the NFL. When there's bad quarterback play, it turns you away from the entire game. You can't sometimes, and I'm the same way as a lot of people, it's like you can't witness bad quarterback play consistently and get invested into a game. Quarterback's the field general. He's the one who leads the troops out. He's the one who has complete control of the football game. Here in game in and game out, it all comes back to the quarterback and the quarterback play. So that's really why I kind of fell off the NBA. It's because the lack of star players playing when it came to the load management thing, and then obviously injuries. But that's just the reality of all of sports is injuries. All right, so the 2024 NFL Draft has gone. And a lot of shocking things happened during that day, especially on night one. Wow. But I'm going to go over some of my draft winners and draft losers from this year's 2024 NFL Draft. So, and in no particular order, I just say these are the best teams that, met the most needs, and they met the most needs and filled their roster to what they needed to fill it for. So, one of my first winners is obviously the Chicago Bears. Now, the Chicago Bears only had 5 draft picks. They've only had 5, and other teams, some of them had 8, 9. I'm pretty sure the Texans had like 12 draft picks for that Deshaun Watson trade still with Cleveland. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But I do think that the Bears are one of the big winners of the draft, specifically because I think they got, obviously, their generational talent quarterback in Caleb Williams. But what I really liked, there's two other picks from Chicago that I really loved. And that was wide receiver Rome Odunze from Washington and Austin Booker, edge rusher from Kansas. So here's the thing. While they only had 5 draft picks, and, that's not much when it comes to an entire 7-round draft, but you got arguably the best quarterback since Trevor Lawrence, and even more so, probably the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. You got probably the second best wide receiver in the draft, Rome Odunze, who played with Michael Penix at Washington. And on the Bears already, you have DJ Moore, you have DeAndre Swift, you have Keenan Allen, you have a solid tight end, you have a growing, slow developing, but okay offensive line, and you have a defense that is always stout because it's the Chicago way to have a good defense, even though sometimes it has a couple stinkers. But if I'm the Bears, I'm ecstatic going into the season so far. You got your quarterback of the future. Let's hope that you don't ruin this guy. You'll have Rome Odunze, you'll have Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, a solid offensive line, and a good, pretty solid defense, I would say. So if I'm the Bears, I'm really licking my chops for the season to start. I'm really looking forward to how this season's going to turn out for Chicago, especially being in division with the Packers, who have Jordan Love and were the youngest team in the playoffs by a large margin last year, and they stomped the Cowboys out, so they're still going to be viable. Jordan Love is still going to be viable. Then you got the Detroit Lions, who I think Detroit, they had a good draft too. Not one of my winners, but they still had a solid draft. They addressed a lot of needs. But Detroit with Detroit with Jared Goff, they're going to be looking to go back to the NFC Championship and eventually go to the Super Bowl. So, they'll still be viable. And then you got the Vikings, who also had a solid draft, getting J.J. McCarthy as their quarterback. Yeah, they're going to be viable too, especially with Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones and Jordan Addison. The Vikings are going to be good too. But that entire division is going to be a dogfight, I feel like. I do think that the Bears could possibly finish first in that entire division, but obviously it's very unlikely. You have to have time to develop your quarterback. You have to have time to develop the scheming of your entire offense and make sure everybody's on the same page. But as far as the talent-wise goes, the Bears are primed and ready to take over the entire division, really. That entire division, just like the AFC North, with the Steelers, Browns, Bengals, and Ravens, that division's a dogfight every year. I don't know. I think the Bears are primed and ready to take over their entire division. And eventually, if all things go as according to plan as I would like it to be, I think the Bears can contend in the NFC probably within the next 5 years, I would say. So my first winner, the Chicago Bears. You got your generational, franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams from USC. You got Rome Odunze, probably the second best prospect in this entire draft, wide receiver from Washington. You got a solid edge rusher from Kansas, Austin Booker. I really think Chicago is primed and ready to make another jump in the NFL. Back to relevance. All right, so let's jump into another team that had a very, very solid draft. And honestly, one of the best, in my opinion, in the entire league is the Philadelphia Eagles. So obviously you have Jalen Hurts on the team. You have Saquon Barkley now. You have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith at the wide receiving positions. And then you have a solid offensive line, barring, obviously, Jason Kelce's retirement, which hurts their offensive line quite a bit because I think Jason Kelce is easily the best offensive lineman in the NFL over the past 10 years, really. So, obviously, they'll miss him. But the biggest issue with Philadelphia last year was their secondary. Their secondary and defense in general could not stop a nosebleed. That's how bad they were. burnt toast all the way around from the cornerbacks and secondary, and their linebackers really couldn't do shit against the run. So the Eagles had a lot of needs this draft. Some people said that they needed more wide receivers, which, here's the thing. You can't have too many wide receivers in this league, at least solid ones for that matter. So they ended up drafting 2 that I really liked, but their biggest needs were cornerback and linebacker, and the Eagles did not disappoint. They addressed both, drafting Quinyon Mitchell, the cornerback from Toledo, and Cooper DeJean, cornerback from Iowa, with their first 2 picks. So they went heavy secondary their first 2 picks, and they were solid. Those are solid cornerbacks. Those are solid picks. Other picks that the Eagles had later in the rounds, Will Shipley, running back from Clemson. Very underrated running back, in my opinion. Runs hard, runs fast. Can catch out of the backfield. He's good at pass blocking, too, when you need him to stay in. But, like I said, he won't really see much of the field because of Saquon Barkley. But it's always important to have depth at any position. That's very important. And then 2 wide receivers first, they did draft, in my opinion, arguably one of the top 2 linebacker prospects in the entire draft this year, Jeremiah Trotter from Clemson. That dude just knows how to stop the run. That dude can hit. That dude can tackle. That dude can cover. Jeremiah Trotter is everything really you want in a linebacker. So I really love that pick. And then there's 2 wide receiving picks that the Eagles made also to add more depth to their room with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And that's Johnny Wilson from FSU and Anais Smith from Texas A&M. As a Miami fan, the last 2 years I saw Miami play Texas A&M. Anais Smith is so good. Anais Smith is one of those really good wide receivers. And then Johnny Wilson, well, me being a Miami fan, I see them play FSU every year, and Johnny Wilson, he did fairly well against the Canes. So the Eagles really had a hell of a draft this year too. Maybe not quite as good as the next team we're going to talk about from Philadelphia. So I'm going to go over my last winner. A couple honorable mentions. Obviously, the Vikings getting J.J. McCarthy, their quarterback. They already have a solid offense with, a great O-line. They have T.J. Hawkinson at tight end. They have Aaron Jones at running back. And then you have the dual-headed monster at receiver in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So just with J.J. McCarthy added to that lineup, I think the Vikings are going to be primed to make big leaps too in the NFL. I think they got their franchise guy. And I think that was the best landing spot for J.J. McCarthy. Now, I said that Minnesota would trade up to get him. They didn't even have to do that, and they still ended up getting him. So, a couple honorable mention, the Minnesota Vikings. They had a damn good one. And same thing with Buffalo. I was very curious as to why they traded out of the first round, but I really love their wide receiver. I've been saying they need a wide receiver badly, and I thought they were going to get Leggett from South Carolina. Well, they did way better than that because I didn't realize that Keon Coleman, wide receiver from FSU, was in the draft. I think I may have remembered that. I don't know. I don't remember making a pick with him last week. So, but either way, I love that pickup for Buffalo. Keon Coleman, that's a damn good pickup for the Buffalo Bills. So, let's go over my last big winner for the NFL draft in 2024, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had arguably, the best draft out of any team this year. Out of any franchise in the NFL this year, I think Pittsburgh addressed every single need that they absolutely had, but they also got the best talent available for those positions. So, obviously, Pittsburgh they really need to bolster up the offensive line. They really do. That's always been an issue with Pittsburgh is the past 5 years, it seems like we have the most inconsistent offensive line play after years of having one of the top 5 offensive lines in the entire league. led by Marquise Pouncey, guys like David DeCastro, Roman Foster, Marcus Gilbert, you name them. Those guys were roadblocks for the better part of a decade. And then after they retired, it just went downhill for Pittsburgh at the offensive line position. So the first two picks for Pittsburgh, fantastic picks. I have no issues with either of them. Troy Fautanu, offensive guard from Washington, and then Zach Frazier, center from West Virginia. Both are solid offensive lineman pieces that Pittsburgh very desperately needed. It's important. I believe this is a contract year coming up for Najee Harris. So while I love Najee, I think he does need a little bit more help on that offensive line because you can't keep giving him the ball 300 times a year and expecting him to stay healthy the entire time. That's not good for a running back's longevity in the NFL at all. So while Najee Harris has to hit the holes when they are open, because last year he did miss quite a few when he was running the football, but majority of the time it's him chugging his feet and just trying to pick up 3 or 4 yards if possible behind that offensive line, which for the better part of 5 years has stunk. But Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier, honestly, 2 great pickups to start off. So I was big on Pittsburgh trying to get Adonai Mitchell from Texas, the wide receiver from Texas, but I didn't realize that the wide receiver from Michigan, Roman Wilson, was coming out this year in the draft. I thought he was still at Michigan, if I'm being honest. I had no clue that Roman Wilson declared for the draft. But that's who Pittsburgh got. With their third draft pick, they got Roman Wilson out of Michigan. Played with J.J. McCarthy, played under Harbaugh. I've watched Roman Wilson play. He is fantastic. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to miss Deontay Johnson whatsoever. So, George Pickens with Roman Wilson, that's pretty solid to me, I think. And you got Calvin Austin. The Pittsburgh is just going to be primed and ready, I promise you. Pittsburgh is going to be primed and ready for this upcoming season. With their 4th pick, Pittsburgh got arguably, another top 3 linebacker in the draft, and Peyton Wilson, linebacker from NC State. That dude was a tackling machine for his entire time at NC State. That dude he just knows how to tackle. Good quality form tackling, he can hit a little bit, but he's no Jeremiah Trotter, Latu, but he can cover, that's for sure. He got quite a few interceptions in his time at NC State, and like I said, he's a tackling machine. So Pittsburgh needed that for the defense because injuries and linebacking play last year was god-awful. Anybody who's a Steeler fan knows how bad that linebacker play was last year. So Peyton Wilson, I think he has the opportunity to start immediately in the NFL for Pittsburgh and start laying the foundation for another steel curtain-like defense. And then the final 3 picks for Pittsburgh, Mason McCormick, offensive guard from South Dakota State, Logan Lee, defensive tackle for Iowa, and then Ryan Watts, cornerback from Texas. So they rounded out basically some basic needs that they, to add depth. Obviously, I like the D-tackle selection, Logan Lee, because Cameron Hayward's getting up in age. And Ryan Watts, obviously, we need more. You can't have too many good corners in the league either, so that's important that they address the cornerback position too. But I do think Pittsburgh is primed and ready, especially going so heavy for the offensive line position in this draft. They're putting all their eggs in one basket when it comes to the success of Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields. Either or, whoever is taking snaps behind center this year, which most likely it's going to be Russell Wilson for the year and then transition into Justin Fields. But either way, whoever is behind center, Pittsburgh is going to make sure that they're well protected. And they're going to make sure that they can run the football to put pressure off of the quarterback position. Now, Kenny Pickett's probably shaking his damn head. He was probably praying that Pittsburgh would get him an offensive line like this. Well, it didn't help that he threw like 3 interceptions a game when he did have time to throw, so that's a bullshit argument. But I love the fact that Pittsburgh went so heavy on offensive line this draft. There's no more excuses when it comes to the run game, and there's no more excuses when it comes to pass blocking. And quarterback play, honestly, if we're being completely honest. Kenny Pickett was young, but dude just couldn't throw the football consistently. Russell Wilson has tenure. Justin Fields has a lot more potential than Kenny Pickett. So there's no more excuses when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're beefing up the offensive line. They're rebuilding that defense brick by brick, little by little, but they're adding depth for that defense brick by brick and little by little. So Pittsburgh's defense is still going to be very viable, and it's going to be up to the offense to finally start putting up some points. So the best team that had the best draft in this year, in 2024, is easily the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think it's necessarily close, from the talent acquisition to addressing team needs. And I think every single one of these guys, at least in the early rounds, has a potential to start week 1 in the NFL. So let's go over some of my draft losers. I'm going to make an honorable mention real quick of the Cleveland Browns. And it's not necessarily anybody they picked. It's the fact of how many picks they didn't have. It's the fact that they traded away the farm to get rid of Deshaun Watson, to get Deshaun Watson on their team. And now they're, unfortunately dealing with the consequences. You got an expensive quarterback who sucks. Probably absolutely putrid now. Hopefully we'll see if he'll be able to right the ship this year in the AFC North. I don't know. Not with Pittsburgh, getting locked and loaded, the Ravens, the Bengals. It seems like every team in the AFC North is getting better other than Cleveland. And that's just unfortunate for Cleveland because, I love their roster. I love the moves that they've been making the past couple years. The only one is quarterback. They can never get the quarterback position right. Now, I thought, like I said in months prior, that it was a right call trying to get a quarterback like Deshaun Watson, at least from a talent perspective, but not for that kind of money. So you're screwed. You're trapped with Deshaun Watson, and you gave Houston a shitload of picks to go along with that. So to get Watson, you gave up the farm and potential draft capital, and now the Texans are locked and loaded, and they just added more and more depth this year from the draft. That's another honorable mention for a winner in the draft is the Houston Texans. Houston's going to be very viable in the near future, that's for sure. But honorable mention of a loser in the draft is Cleveland, not even just because of how little picks they had, because I liked their draft picks, but it's the problem of the draft picks they didn't have because they traded them all away for Deshaun Watson. Okay, so let's move on to these two draft losers, in my opinion, at least the two biggest ones. The first one, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, their basic needs for the team, they need an edge rusher, defensive tackle, linebackers. They just need basic stuff. But I've said for weeks now that there's not many holes in the Atlanta Falcons team. At this point, they're just adding depth. Well, I predicted that they would take Dallas Turner, edge rusher from Alabama, last week. They did not. Instead, they chose quarterback Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. Now, I know what people are going to say. That's a terrible pick. And I partially agree. But is it that entirely bad to have basically an insurance policy at quarterback in the NFL? How often can you say you have the best backup quarterback in the league? So if your team's starting quarterback goes down, you'd be okay. Well, you got Kirk Cousins. They're throwing him a boatload of money to come be the quarterback for Atlanta. And it's even reported that Kirk Cousins was not a fan of this pick whatsoever. And why would he be? I don't blame him. But at the same time, from a team perspective, there's not many holes on the entire Falcons team. There's not many holes. I do think they needed another edge rusher badly. That's why I do think Dallas Turner would have made such a great immediate impact for Atlanta. But let's say Kirk Cousins is getting older, a lot older. And who knows? He hasn't always been terribly mobile. Well, is he going to be even less mobile now coming back from his injury? So I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing having Michael Penix on the roster now. Get him in there. Get him in the locker room. Have him throw with the guys. Have him learn behind Kirk Cousins, who's, he's got tenure. He's not a world-class talent at quarterback, but he's still a veteran, and he's still pretty good. He's better than a lot of people give him credit for. But it's a good thing because it's never a bad thing to have an insurance policy at quarterback in the NFL. It's never bad to have that option, especially when you're paying a quarterback that's so damn expensive. And now you bring in a rookie on a rookie deal, so you're not really paying him that much compared to what you're paying Kirk Cousins right now. Who's to say Kirk Cousins doesn't stink it up, or who's to say Kirk Cousins doesn't get injured again? Well, now you have a viable option at quarterback, and possibly the next 10 years, the future of Atlanta football in Michael Penix. So I disagree with the pick because I think they needed more depth elsewhere, but I understand the pick and can agree with it in the sense of having an insurance policy at quarterback in the NFL is never a bad option. That's why I'm a fan of also Pittsburgh bringing in Justin Fields along with Russell Wilson at the same time because, well, one, Russell Wilson is cheaper, way cheaper. Thanks again, Denver. We appreciate that. But he's way cheaper. He's a veteran. And I think he's still got a little bit left in the tank. But he would also be a good mentor for someone younger, Justin Fields. So let's say Russell Wilson decides to stink it up this year. Well, we have potentially a good quality backup to throw in there too. It's basically an insurance policy there. So while I disagree with the pick in some ways, in other ways I support it because it's never a bad idea to have a backup in the league that can come in and win you games consistently. And very rarely do you have a backup that can potentially be your franchise quarterback for the next 15 or so years. So Atlanta, I think they're partially a winner, but they're also a loser just because I really did not like any of their other picks. I think they had eight draft picks. Well, the best one out of that was Michael Penix. And Michael Penix probably isn't even going to see the field this year or next year, or who knows when he's going to see the field. Either way, I doubt Michael Penix is taking a snap this year. I think he's just going to learn. But everybody else that Atlanta drafted a running back from Alabama. You have Bijan Robinson and free agency. You don't need that. I mean, I like the J.D. Bertrand linebacker from Notre Dame, but other than that, I'm not a fan of any of Atlanta's other picks. I am a fan of Michael Penix, but like I said, I don't think he necessarily needed it. It goes both ways. So I didn't understand the rest of Atlanta's draft. I really didn't. All right, let's go over our one last loser. And I can't end a show without smack talking the dumpster fire organization known as the Cowboys, can I? All realistic. Being completely honest with you guys, Dallas did not have a great draft either. So they need wide receiver help, they need offensive tackle help, defensive tackle help, running back help. They just need help everywhere. Like I said in last week's episode, I thought they would draft Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle from Oklahoma. Guess what? I was right. They did draft Tyler Guyton. But like I said, they need help everywhere. They have a star wide receiver. I get that. They have a star edge rusher in Micah Parsons. I get that. And they have a competent quarterback. I'm not ready to call Dak a star. I don't think he is a star. I think he's a competent, good B-plus quarterback, but competent nonetheless. And people were leaving comments on my one short when I said Dallas is screwed when it comes to their running back room, their offensive line, defense. Like, people were hammering me that this dude doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, just because I said you're going to be having to pay CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and Dak real soon, you do realize you need more than one of those guys at the position, other than quarterback. You need more than one capable wide receiver. You have CeeDee Lamb. He's going to be a superstar. He's up there with guys you can consider him in the class of like Justin Jefferson. But if he doesn't have a good game, guess what? Dallas can't move the fucking ball through the air because no other wide receiver on Dallas can step up to the level, even remotely close to CeeDee Lamb. And if Micah Parsons isn't getting pressure, luckily, Dallas does have a good secondary, so they bail him out a little bit. But if Micah Parsons isn't really getting to the quarterback, Dallas really isn't getting to the quarterback. So quarterbacks really have more time to throw. So, what's the debate on here? I always say it is never bad. It's not bad to ever have too much depth. You can't have too much depth at any position in the NFL, other than maybe punter or kicker. But, even then, if they get hurt, you need someone. But Dallas fans, they didn't even draft a running back. So I guess they are going with the three-headed monster of Deuce Vaughn, Royce Freeman, and some other guy I don't even remember. So the running back room is still an issue for Dallas. They addressed the offensive line position, but they also need wide receiver help. But they drafted Ryan Flournoy from Southeast Missouri State. I have never heard of this cat whatsoever, especially with some of the early on picks. They drafted Marshawn Nealon, edge rusher from Western Michigan. That's an okay pick. That's not bad. Cooper Beebe from Kansas State, offensive guard. That ain't bad. Maris Lufau, linebacker from Notre Dame. That's not a bad pick either. But the problem is this was such a deep wide receiver draft that you could have had one of those better, upper echelon wide receivers early on in the draft. So I don't know exactly what Dallas is doing. You don't need a cornerback. Kalen Carson from Wake Forest, he's not bad at all, but you don't need him. You have your secondary stacked pretty much. You need a safety, if anything. But, Dallas is just going to Dallas. They addressed some needs. They did. But as far as the other needs they had, they addressed them, but they didn't address them well. And especially running back. There's no information about running back anywhere for Dallas. They don't really give a shit. It's funny to me that they gave Zeke all the money in the world when he was on a decline, and yet they won't pay for one single running back now when their best running back is Royce Freeman or Deuce Vaughn in the backfield. And nothing against those guys, but they are not a Saquon Barkley. They are not Derrick Henrys. They are not Christian McCaffreys. Those guys don't compare really to those other guys. But it's Dallas, hence the way of Dallas. Never change, Cowboys. And that's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. I really appreciate you making me a part of your day again. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Lakeo. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up.